Now, if someone who is a Christian for 49 years can be convinced by this sort of thing, I don't think we need to leave it alone. I think we need to aggressively address it.
And the media tools that are being used to foster this stuff, and going on Google and Wikipedia, and people assuming that if it's in print, it's true. If it's well researched, it appears to be footnoted, it appears to be 20 pages, someone has a PhD, someone has an MA. Give us some guidelines with regard to authorities. Are we to trust everyone who claims to be an authority?
No, in this day and age, certainly not. I think it's very important for people to be able to go out and compare different claims and to compare sources. Look at the book that you pick up and see what kind of sources it uses. See what the dates are. See what kind of credentials the author has. And then go out and look for opposing points of view as well. Look at the credentials of that person. See what they have. See if they address each other's arguments. That's one of my main concerns. I always go out and look for books that are on the opposition side. And I purposely go out and compare the arguments from one to the other. I just don't let one side speak for itself. I let them both speak. And that's what we need to be doing if we're going to want to critically examine these things for ourselves. Not everyone's going to do that, but if that's what you're wanting to do, you should look at both sides equitably.
The Christ myth thesis is a hot button thesis. You're touching people's faith commitment. You're touching the most intimate part of who they are. And therefore, this can either bring a paradigm shift in their life where they become educated and they seek things out, or they can just throw their faith over.
Yes.
What a tragedy.
Yes, it is, especially when you consider that they did it for basically
for nothing.
A mess of pottage.
For a mess of... Now, you're dealing with cynics and skeptics, and you're dealing with these authors. You've had contact with all of the current authors, haven't you?
Some of them.
Concerning the Christ myth?
To some extent.
What are the interactions like? We can read them on Tecton Apologetics. I know it takes a few hours, but what is it like on your end, where you're responding to these people, shattering the Christ myth? Your whole book, each chapter, I believe, decimates and dismantles this foolishness. But what is it just like, from your perspective, dealing with it?
They would rather that I don't exist, and they pretend that I don't exist for the most part. They would say it's because I'm too insulting and too rough on them, but the reality is that they can't answer the arguments, because if they could, they would do it, or they would at least pick one or two to answer. But they don't do that. I've had some of this information about high and low context that we talked about for many years now. No one has touched it, except for a couple of low-down people that no names, shall we say. And they show that they don't even understand what it's all about. They don't go out and find books by social science scholars and try and refute it. They just deliver an opinion on the spot and say, well, I don't think that's right because this and this. And then they come up with some crazy reason that's totally misinformed. This is the kind of reaction I get all the time from these people, from these cynics and these skeptics.
When you are dealing with the Christ myth people, how many dialogues will you have with them if they engage you? Do you do debates publicly on these topics, or mostly in print? I
do associate myself with a forum called Theology Web, and on occasion one of them will show up there, or I will invite them there if they write me some annoying email. I'll say, well, show up here, we'll have some fun with you.
What is Theology Web?
Theology Web is an online discussion forum. It was initially built by one of my readers and a couple of other people, and a lot of the readers of my website hang out there. So it's a good place to come for fellowship and for apologetics arguments. There are a lot of different departments there, and I have my own section on there.
What is distinctively different about Tecton Apologetics versus other apologetic sites on the web?
Distinctive. Well, I would have to say it's that I have a no-holds-barred approach, whereas a lot of people will try to be more gentle. I will try and go after the critics and go right for the jugular, shall we say. Which a lot of people are unwilling or afraid to do. They feel that, well, Jesus said we should not be aggressive. Well, Jesus was very aggressive at times when the conditions called for it.
Tell me a bit about the Christ myth methodology. If we apply their assault against Christianity to any other historical figures from the ancient world, I mean, is it a methodology that they're applying to Julius Caesar or to Caligula or to Alexander the Great or to other?
Well, it's kind of funny that you should say that, because at the end of my article on the site and in the Shattering the Christ Myth book, I have something where I say, prove to me that Gamaliel, the famous Jewish rabbi, existed. Because the evidence for Gamaliel is much less than the evidence for Jesus.
And Hillel.
Yeah, and Hillel. And
Shammai.
And other people. And I've had some interesting reactions to that. I've had one fellow say, "Okay, well, I don't believe Gamaliel existed either then." Good point. Thank you for helping me realize that. Well, at least they're consistent. And there was a group called the Rational Responders. That was an atheist group that had this contest, shall we say, where they said, "We want you to come up with names of historical figures who were not mentioned by contemporaries, like Jesus wasn't mentioned by contemporary historians. And we'll give you this much money if you can give us at least 5." They had to pull the contest pretty quickly because people were coming up with names very quickly. And those included some of the names that we were talking about, Hillel and Shammai and Gamaliel. They're just not mentioned by secular historians of the period. Jesus gets more mention than those people. So they are definitely not being consistent. They are definitely not applying sound historical method. Well, of course, they don't use professional historians as resources, so why would they use the methods of professional historians, right?
Now, we're going to be doing future programs on this topic where we can go further in depth to this, because you can't mention everything about everything. And no ancient Roman historian or any other historian mentioned everything about everything or mentioned everyone that they could have mentioned. There are specialties, there are reasons for writing, and we'll get into all of those. But right now, I just want to encourage those that are watching these little snippets to go to Tecton Apologetics, James Patrick Holding, to get your book Shattering the Christ Myth, your book The Impossible Faith, your book on Mormonism, which is called
The Mormon Defenders.
The Mormon Defenders.
Yes.
And then your new book, you've written a youth book for apologetics. What is that called?
Blowing the Doors Off, and that'll be out this month, November 2008.
Where you're putting a lot of this material for the youth to be able to understand.
Right.
Oh, this is wonderful. JP, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Craig.
And I would encourage everyone to go to Tecton Apologetics. If you have 2 hours, sit with your Starbucks and just read article after article. I was reading your site until I was getting eye problems, which you're going to get my bill for that. All right. So next time, welcome back to the Veritas Forum. We're going to be dealing with the Christ myth, taking a little bit further, and also we would love to have any questions sent in to anyone that's watching. You can contact JP, James Patrick Holding, at Tecton Apologetics with any issues you might have with regard to questions concerning the Christ myth. But do get the book, Shattering the Christ Myth, because I think that would answer about 90% of any questions that would arise. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on another program.
Thank you.